Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here today with my good friend, Rob Moorhouse from Erickson Immigration Group. Hey Rob, how are you doing today?
Not bad, mate. How are you?
Phenomenal. It is great to have you here. You came all the way from
Houston, Texas. Just down the road.
Just down the road a piece, over yonder, as my grandma would say. Get in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are. Give your company a shout out. If you've got any musings you want to share with us today, feel free to get in the comments. Hit that like button. Let's give Rob a little love out here. Want to hear from you out there. Let us know what's going on. We got people checking in. Look at Balaji. Balaji checking in. Happy Thursday. Tuning in from Dallas, Texas. Balaji's in immigration.
Yeah.
Just down the road a piece. Balaji, we got to get Balaji in studio. Hey, Adam, do we got a date for Balaji out there?
Send him a message.
He's going to send you a message. We're going to get that done. Can't wait to have you in studio there. Happy Friday Eve. Friday Junior out here from Deluxe, tuning in from H-Town. We got Valerie. You left Valerie in Houston. You know that?
Yeah.
You could have taken Valerie with you. Val, when are you going to get up here in Dallas? Come up the road a piece. Ray Abbott, good afternoon, everyone from Vancouver, British Columbia. What's up, Ray? I was just thinking about you today, Ray. I was on the phone with IAM planning the conference for Toronto in October of this year. That's going to be amazing. Hope to see you, Ray, there. I'm sure you're going to be there in full effect. Rob Seitz, hello from Air Inc. in Boston. Rob's Rule.
Yeah, there you go. Hell of a name.
You know, we're all about inclusion, but we do make broad generalizations here, and one is that Rob's Rule. So far, nobody's proved it wrong so far. Sherelle Kilgore, excited to see Rob on the show, tuning in from Royce City, Texas.
G'day.
We were just talking about Sherelle last night.
We were all nice things, I promise.
You know what Rob said about you, Sherelle, behind your back? He said, one of the highlights of going to a conference is when Sherelle Kilgore smiles at me.
Absolutely. She lights up the room.
Isn't
Always
that
happy to see everyone.
one of the nicest things you can say about people? This is great. This is why I love this community.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so cool.
It's
And we all come together. We're all friends here. Hit that like button out there. Christine tuning in while I double screen desktop it today. What's on the other screen, Christina? Why not just double us up? Can I get one screen? Rob gets another screen. Have you thought about that? Just exploring new ways to stream it. Look at this. Sherelle says, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, right. If you got questions for Rob, put them in the comments. We're going to be hearing about Rob's journey and how he got into this crazy industry. He's got a Houston accent, I think.
A bit further south.
Bit further south. We're going to figure out where that accent is from. We might even get into a top 5 I prepared, especially for Rob.
Oh.
Crazy stuff Australians say. And Rob can define and use in a sentence.
Hope it's all family friendly.
It's all work safe, I think. I don't know. This is going to be fun. Tim Quirk. Hey. That's a lot of A's. A's are free on the show. That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff like that. And get in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. But, Rob, we talked about your accent, all kidding aside. Where in the world are you from, Rob? Tell people.
So I'm originally from Canberra in Australia, but have moved around an awful lot over the years. So I've been in the States in Houston for 6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you find it?
I love it. I know people in the States have a very mixed view about Texas.
It's true. I moved to Texas and like people were scared for me.
Yeah. No,
They're like, are you going to be okay? Is it all right?
Yeah. I've been here
safe.
6 years, and before that, I've never lived anywhere for more than 3.5 years in a row. So I think that says, it's a livable place. Especially Houston, it's very chill.
So you came over here. Did you assimilate to the culture? You got a pickup truck and a gun now?
Guilty on both.
Guilty on both counts. At least you're safe out there. You go off road and then protect yourself. That's what's important here. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. So now you're here 6 years. What brought you to the States?
So I've moved around a fair bit for work over the years, and as a child as well. But I moved around a fair bit, and I had been practicing as an Australian registered migration agent for 10 odd years.
You were practicing. Did you ever get good at it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I was all right. But I guess I never saw myself moving away from Australian immigration. And
right.
Then the right opportunity came up to come to the States and move into a different role. And it sort of coincided with the fact that the the Australian government changed the way they managed immigration, and it got a little bit less facilitative and just seemed like the right time for a move. So it was a bit of a scary move to move from doing one thing forever, Australian immigration, to moving across the global immigration ops. But
so talk about that, because I find these moments in people's careers are so interesting, and they're oftentimes these inflection points that set you on a new kind of journey and a new trajectory. And obviously probably wouldn't be here now had you not made that move. What was that like when you went from, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had experience doing on the government side in Australia, as well as private, and then to make that change over to kind of global operations within immigration. What made you decide to make that change, and what was that like?
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, you know what I mean? And also, it was the right time to move. I was on my own, single guy, not disrupting or uprooting.
It is easier when you don't have a lot of people depending on you. You take more risks.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more rooted now, so
right.
It was the right time. And it's also, if someone gave me some advice that said, look, if you don't say yes, you might not get another offer. And if you want to step outside your comfort zone and move around the world and do different things, just say yes. And
I love that.
Yeah, so
just say yes.
Yeah,
saying yes is kind of a big thing. Yeah. It's hard to do.
It is. I think moving around a lot as a kid helps. It breaks it down. It's not as big a deal to sort of move. If you move so many times when you're younger, you're not married to your roots in a certain place. You realize you can come back to them, or you can go lay down new roots somewhere else. So
I want to ask the audience a question. Hey, if you're out there right now, hit that like button. I've been seeing a lot of people posting lately on LinkedIn about saying no, right? They're like, you gotta start saying no. You can't be afraid to say no. You gotta set boundaries. You gotta protect your time, your mental health, all this stuff, right? And now you're talking about saying yes. Yeah. And I'm more of like a say yes kind of person. I challenge myself to say yes. I want to ask the audience out there, speaking to you now. It's time we go over to the other screen. No, I want to know out there, what is more important to you? Learning how to say no or learning how to say yes? I want to ask the audience, is it more important for you to learn how to say no or learn how to say yes? Put it in the comments, yes or no. If you want to go extra, you want extra credit? We award extra credit on the program. We award extra credit if you'd like to tell us why. But I want to know, is it learning how to say yes or learning how to say no, which is more important to you? Put it in the comments. I've seen Christina, I've seen other people. Get in there. I want to know. I want you to answer that question for me, Rob. What is your opinion on that?
I think it's both. I think you need to.
You can't say both. I give you two options. Yes or no. Yes
I think it's more important to learn to say yes. However, you got to balance that with making sure you're not taking advantage of. You've got to be assertive and make sure that you're doing the right thing. However, if you don't say, there does seem to be, I don't know if it's a generational thing of, say no, it's not in my job description, that sort of thing. Whereas I think some of the best things I've done over the years have been completely out of my comfort zone and out of my job description, if you will. And it's let me develop new skills. It's let me prove that I'm suitable for another role and therefore progressed. And I think you sometimes need to prove that you can do the job that you want. And that's by definition means doing something outside of your current role. So,
correct.
So I think there's that, but then there is also making sure that you're not doing a hell of a lot of stuff and not progressing as a result. You know what I mean? All the extra things and putting in the extra and not getting the love back. I think that's what people are sort of latching onto when they say that.
Yes, I agree. I think, you're right. Because people will throw a lot of stuff at you that you need to say no to because it's distracting. Right? There's a whole lot of stuff out there that people don't want to do, and they're going to try to put it on your plate, and you have to protect yourself from that, right? So that's where the saying no comes into it. But for me, the harder part is to say yes to the scary things.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of do that scary thing. We got people checking in here. Oh, this is fun. I love when people get in here. I agree. I'm like a learn to say yes kind of person too. Christina Arushia says, if it's not a hell yes, you gotta say no. It's not. I've heard that. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like if it's not like an overwhelming hell yeah, then it's a hell no.
I don't know. It's a bit tricky, right? Everybody has a little bit of imposter syndrome about them, right?
Yes.
So everybody suffers, and the sooner you realize everybody suffers from that, the better. But everybody has a little bit of that. So it's very hard to get to an emphatic hell yes all the time. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it is a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a whimpering yes, but just sort of mucking in and jumping into it. So
I agree, because the hell yes is going to be squarely within your wheelhouse.
yeah.
That's like, oh, this is right down my alley. But yeah, hell yes. Hell yes, I can do this thing I've always done and do it for more money somewhere.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I gotta really do some introspection. That's that whole career pivot thing like you did.
Yeah. Well, and I
Was that a hell yes for you at the moment? When you did that career pivot in operations, and then also when you moved around the world, I mean, were those like hell yes?
I don't know if it was a hell yes as much as it was like, why the hell not? You know? I had a client who became a very good friend, who actually, sadly enough, recently passed away. But he retained us to do a project that no one had done before, this enterprise migration agreement in Australia. And I had to speak to all of their contractors about it, and I was visibly incredibly nervous. And he's like, "Why are you so nervous about it? Like, no one here knows more than you know about it,
right?
And you're learning to do it, and we'll be able to teach other people how to do it. You know, just get excited about it. Don't let it get you nervous and stop you from, you know, getting in and mucking in and getting it done."
So where was that nervousness coming from?
I've been doing this for a really, really long time. So there was a long period where I would be quite young for the role I was in.
Yeah.
And as I said, everybody gets that little bit of imposter syndrome, and you just think, everyone's going to work it out. And I'm sort of swinging out of my weight class here. So I think there's a little bit of that that creeps in for everybody.
Yeah, does anybody out there ever deal with imposter syndrome? I mean, this is something I deal with all the time. I'd love to hear if people really kind of relate to that. If you do, you know, how have you gotten over that, or how do you cope with that? You know, I say gotten over. I don't even know if it's something you get over, you know, that you really get over as much as it is like learning to be comfortable, you know, having it there with you.
Well, accepting is pretty common. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I remember on the show in the first year we did this show, we read a book called Fear Is My Homeboy by the author Judy Holler. She's also followed on LinkedIn too. But she talks about, you know, you're never going to get rid of your fear. You're just going to learn how to do it afraid.
Yeah.
And you're going to go into situations with fear. And what she always said was, you name the fear, you give it a name like Jerry. And you're like, all right, Jerry, we're going to go to this party tonight where we're nervous. And all right, Jerry, you're going to come with me, but you're going to sit in the corner over there, and I'm going to go do my thing over here. And you're not going to bother me, and you're going to, you know, keep to yourself. And I'm like, wow, that's like such an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I think there's an element of learning to embrace it. You know what I mean? You know that if you do something, you know, if you sort of just jump in and do it, you'll learn that once you do it a few times, the nerves or the anxiety will pass, and you just sort of move on and get used to it coming up, and you know it's going to go away, and you just keep doing it. So
I love it. I'd love to hear how anyone else deals with fear and deals with things like that. Rob says, learning how to say no so I can concentrate and focus on the prioritized yes stuff. A lot of folks are kind of
splits the room, doesn't it?
Sherelle saying learning to say no is harder for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really fair comment.
Yeah, I think so. And I've served on boards with Sherelle, and I mean, those are great places where a lot of stuff can pile on you, you know, easily. Rob says, can we agree it's important for bosses and leaders to actively give employees chances to say yes to some new things, to find ways to grow? Wow, what's the role of a boss in that scenario? Is it a boss's responsibility or opportunity to give that employee those say yes opportunities?
Well, I think it's a pretty important part of performance management and career mapping and what have you. You know, meeting with the people who you work with or report to you, working out what's important to them, where they want to go, what they love about their job, what they don't, making sure it is somewhere they love to be and love doing what they do. But yeah, I think it's, you know, identifying what's important to them, where they want to go, and giving them opportunities to do that and succeed. And I think that's part of, you know, good performance management, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I heard about this book called Dream Manager. The Dream Manager. I don't know if y'all have heard about this book or not, but basically, the print one is written in parable. You know, like a lot of these business books are for dumb business people who can only read the stories. But basically, it's a really simple read. Go check it out. But basically, the whole point of this is if you help, it's a story about a company that's a janitorial company, and they take an interest in their employees' dreams. And basically, they're having crazy turnover, they're having no employee engagement, and all of a sudden, they kind of realize if I start asking my employees what their dreams are, and I start helping them build a plan to accomplish those dreams, like owning their first home, sending their kid to college, things that they thought were kind of not attainable, then I can get crazy good employee engagement. I can get crazy low turnover. And what they were seeing with employee engagement, the theory here is that people were disengaged because they felt like they were in a place where their dreams were not attainable. So what's the point? And so when you talk about performance, management and things like that, I think about, and then we talk about what Rob was saying here with, giving them chances to say yes to some new things. I like to say, instead of like going down to the tactical level, like, wouldn't you like to try this new assignment? Instead saying, what is your dream? If you were to, remove all of the limiting beliefs that we have and pretend you could try anything and be successful, what would you want to be doing? And then let's back into the steps that get you there and understand that even though they might be scary, they are stepping stones on the way to this amazing life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's critical in making sure that someone loves coming to work. I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably touch and go thing to say in a work environment, but it's, work is not always the most important thing. Right? You've got family, you've got your personal life, your hobbies, sports, all the rest of it. It's work is a very important thing, but you gotta love it. If you don't come to work loving what you do something else. It's
I agree.
Really critical.
I agree. And when you talk about loving what you do, and look, we got loving what you do. Vinny Valverde, hey Rob and Ben. Rob is an incredible addition to the EIG team.
You flatter me. Thank you, Vinny.
Wow, Vinny, put your Venmo there in the comments. Put a little something in the tip jar.
And envelopes on the way.
Thank you, Vinny. Love Vinny. That's a guy that exudes love for his profession.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the model right there, Vinny. Phil Leonard, great afternoon, everyone. Phil from Interim Homes from Philly. Phil from Philly. Does it ever get old, Phil? How about the Eagles? The Cowboys are off the Eagles in the next round. We'll see what we get there. So let's talk about that, loving what you do, and Vinny mentioned, incredible addition to the EIG team. You joined Erickson Immigration Group recently. I'm just so stoked for you and for them. I love the people at Erickson. What was that like, and what was that choice like for you?
It was an easy choice, and it's been a great move. Like, it's a really lovely firm to work for. It's one that really focuses on the employee experience and making sure that you enjoy what you do and you've got balance. Focusing on health and wellness and everything. It's really a fantastic business from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective as well. I'm not sure a lot of people realize that, but 50% of the ownership team are female and from minority groups. So
a lot of female partners.
It's 80% of the attorneys are female.
A lot of diversity. I think they won an award. I saw in the news there in the DC area. I think one of the partners, Hiba. Shout out to Hiba, who's been on the show a long time ago. I got to get you back on, Hiba. Won some awards. She's amazing. I mean,
they're all amazing.
Alex,
it's a fantastic
amazing.
team. Fantastic.
Justin, love Justin. I mean, I just love the culture over there, and I just get really good vibes.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're there.
Yeah, no, it was great. And I had been in my last role for 13 years. I joined my first immigration role at 17. A lot of Australians, when we finish high school, we go off and do a backpacking year or a gap year.
Nice.
And instead of doing that, I finished my last exam on a Thursday, and by Monday I was living in Melbourne, and I moved to Sydney and started with PricewaterhouseCoopers in their old global visa solution.
Sorry, you were 17 years old and you started at PwC in their global visa?
Yeah, and unfortunately...
No wonder you're like, I've been doing this forever, and you look like you're 28, man.
Well, and unfortunately for me, I've looked like this most of my life. So I had to go through the grad course, and I think they thought I was grad age. And really, I was like, no, I'm 17. I've got to go to uni next year. So,
right.
But I never ended up having that sort of gap year or that break. So having a bit of a break between my last role and this one was just absolutely amazing.
So you finally got your gap year.
Yeah, it was, and I made the most of it.
What did you do with all that time? Because I mean, I dream about having. I mean, you do and you don't, right? Because I probably go nuts, but at the same time, like, just to be able to decompress hardcore like that.
Yeah, I thought I would go absolutely insane because I'm the sort of person where, ordinarily when I'm working, I take sort of 2 weeks off for a holiday or something, and after a week, I'm like, let me get back to work. I need the routine. I like what I do, so I'm always pretty keen to get back to it. But I got to say, having a break I think it's really important as well to sort of put one thing into away and then move on to the next thing and really go at it with gusto. I got lots of traveling, focused a lot on sort of my health and exercise and gym and stuff like that, which is great. I mean, it's a real first world problem to having that much time off to go do whatever the hell you want.
Other people are out there like working in like manual labor, getting their fitness that way. And we get to do it as a hobby. No, let me ask you, is there anything that you discovered during your kind of intensive time off?
Not in particular. I really sort of I discovered that I can like switch off, which was something I didn't think I could do that much of. Like I discovered that I could. What
about yoga? What about yoga? You were talking about yoga.
I did a fair bit of that. What you can't see on the camera probably is that I'm whopping in height. Like I'm pretty tall.
He's tall. He's real tall. You meet him and you're like, hey, that's a tall drink of Foster's. That's a big point right there.
The beer that we don't drink actually.
The beer you don't actually drink yet. Oh,
but yeah, no. All those years of basketball, my body's pretty much packing it in. So having the time to go do yoga and stuff and really get my body a bit more healthier was really fantastic.
Is it hard?
It is if your knees want to pop out all the time, but no, it's just depends on finding the right instructor.
Finding the right instructor. I need a very empathetic yoga instructor. No, we were talking about yoga on the show a couple weeks ago, and Kyle Blaylock, I love Kyle out there. Tag Kyle if you can, Kyle Blaylock. But he said you think you're an athlete until you do yoga,
right?
And I guess it can be pretty hard. Look, we got Drew Phillips checking in here. Hello, gentlemen. First session of the new year. Welcome, Drew. Appreciate you tuning in here. Fantastic. Let me ask you. So now you're at Erickson Immigration Group, phenomenal group of people. One of my favorite immigration firms out there. What are you seeing, kind of like from a client trends standpoint right now? I mean, here we are in 2023. What are clients looking for when they look for immigration service providers?
Yeah, look, it's a bit cyclical sometimes. We'll go through phases where you get a lot of companies that want to work with, a big four provider where they do everything in one place. The tax and expatriate tax and all that side of things, and then people move away from it. So it does go, and same with the RMC model. You get people that want to bundle it through and use their providers. But
when you say it's cyclical, I'm always interested in these cyclical nature of certain businesses and why that pendulum swings like that. What is the rationale and the thought process between the cyclical?
I'm not sure. I think that probably you'd have to ask.
They go in and try it, and then they realize, oh wait, that's why I wasn't doing that.
I think
and then they go back this way, and they're like, hey, you know what? I missed that about this.
I think so, and also it's resourcing, right? So if you're using all individual specific vendors around the world for different, maybe different vendors in different countries for different verticals, it's a lot to manage. And if you've got less hands to do it, maybe you go back to lumping it all in one place. So it does go around. But immigration in general is very cyclical. When you've been doing it for a long time, you really do notice, like, oh, here we go again.
So what is the cycle? What is the cycle du jour right now? What's the trend right now?
Well, you often see countries move to sort of protectionism or nationalism, where they close borders, like we've seen recently during COVID and what have you, or during the global financial crisis, like different things where they might tighten it up, and then they realize, oh, we don't have enough people now to do the work that we need to do in this country. So they relax things again, or really push to get applications through, clear backlogs, make things a little bit easier. And we're seeing a bit of that at the moment. So what we're seeing now is a move towards reducing process to allow the freer movement of people. We're seeing better systems and what have you, the increase of things like digital nomad visas or visas or work permits where you don't need to be sponsored by a particular country. a lot of countries are doing what they can to attract talent when things have been a little bit tighter during COVID.
Right, and it seems like it always takes a few years for the countries to kind of catch up to, the demand, right? It's like, the demand for digital nomad visas, obviously it's been growing, but really, really spiked with COVID. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And there was a couple countries that were like out front on it. And then and now you're starting to see like people getting active and like, okay, this is how we do it. This is tax implications. This is how we kind of administer it, right?
Well,
and now they're like, okay, we can do this and we want to do it. We don't want to be like last to offer this. We want to don't want to lose out on the brain, whatever the opposite of brain drain is,
Well, then I think it's a much more measured approach to it as well at the moment. Like at the very beginning of COVID, you got some companies. I remember we had a client that said, you can go work from wherever you like, grab a backpack, grab a laptop, and rack off wherever you want in the world. And then realize, from an immigration perspective or a tax perspective or whatever, there's a lot of implications for that. So
still really crazy. I'm still hearing a lot of really mixed messages around if that's possible or not, and even from companies that are in the travel and even mobility space, hearing a lot of differences of opinions about how viable and feasible that is. Get in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on all this stuff, on the trends, on what you're seeing in the immigration landscape. Get in there if you've got questions for Rob or dare I say even myself, and you want an uninformed opinion. I'm always here for you. Get in there, hit that like button as well. We got Kyle jumping in. Just I love when Kyle validates me. He says it's true. We don't know if that refers to the yoga piece or anything we said afterwards. But I'm just going to say
educated decision.
Just a general. It's true. Yeah, thank you, Kyle, so much. I love all y'all out there watching right now. Get in the comments. Let us know what you think about all this craziness we're talking about. Rob, I want to ask you. We're hearing about these layoffs, especially in the technology sector, right? And I was just going to get coffee, walking by the TV. Microsoft lays off 10,000 people, just announced it, right? We saw yesterday, I think it was Amazon announced 18,000 people laid off. Now, 18,000 is a big number, but they got 1.5 million employees. So, big number, but, not like if Lomo laid off 18,000 people. We'd be really scared. We'd all be really scared. And surprised.
Yeah,
that's what but what do you talk about the cyclical nature and everything. What do you think the impact of these technology companies' layoffs is going to be on the immigration landscape? How's that going to affect the market, you think?
Yeah, it's tricky because you're going to have affect the market. There's just going to be a lot more people that are out there looking for sponsorship. There are people here who are on sponsored visas and now have a clock to go and find someone somewhere else. The other thing is that you'll find when things like that happen is if they don't have that and they don't end up finding another sponsor and they have a bad experience, they're apprehensive to when the next time this sort of opportunity comes up. Do you know what I mean? That's the other sort of shortfall outcomes that fall out of this, something like this. They be more apprehensive about taking postings and migrating somewhere in the future.
Yeah, all right. I mean, you pick up stakes, you come to the States and start doing your amazing job at Amazon or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get laid off. You see apprehension. I mean, we saw apprehension in all. Anytime there's kind of a bubble burst or a crash kind of thing in any kind of a market, you see a lingering apprehension in the future. Even when things get good again, there's still the pain associated with that. I mean, we saw after the housing crash here in the States. There's still a reluctance to start building gangbusters again, even in 2010, right? And then it took a while for it to catch up. So, I think that's a really good point I never considered. I'm curious from a talent acquisition standpoint, as a recruitment agency owner, also really curious what opportunities that presents from a talent acquisition standpoint. Because to your point, now you have all these highly qualified professionals with amazing resumes, right? Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, whatever, floating around, desperately needing to get on somewhere. It seems like an amazing opportunity to go out and snap great talent.
I have noticed a lot of talent acquisition managers or recruitment managers actually then doing sort of outward pushing of candidates. So saying, hey, we've let go of these people, but if you need anybody in these sort of roles, reach out, and you know, you don't necessarily need to do that. But I think that is a big part of it, right? Like if you've got to do these things, how you manage it, you know, what services and assistance you provide. What we found on the whole, because we look after a lot of technology companies, is there is a lot of care put into it and sympathy, empathy, if you will.
Yeah.
So, you know, our team has been doing an incredible job of being incredibly busy, doing a lot of that sort of reduction in force advice and assistance to, you know, people that have been like, oh, and, you know, this is what it means for you. These are the next steps. You know, don't be intimidated by it. But, you know, what questions do you have? That sort of thing. So,
you know what? You know, that's a great point. And here we are. You know, people have talked about looming recession. And I'm a little more bullish on these things than I think a lot of other people are. I think you're seeing the technology sector being hit incredibly hard. You're seeing banking and finance also being hit, but mostly because they have a ton of exposure in the tech sector, right? They're holding all these stocks and everything in their portfolio, managing portfolios with all these stocks and their indexes and things like that. So they have a lot of exposure to it as well, and loans out to these, all sorts of stuff. Basically, to me though, this is fairly isolated within the technology companies who have been, in strictly my uninformed opinion here, as if I need to say that for the 8th time. But it's these companies that have historically had these valuations that have been overvalued for a long time. People are like, these valuations don't make sense. You know, why is Uber worth $50 billion when they're not even profitable? Things like this has been narratives for a long time. And now we're saying, you know, Warren Buffett said, you know, when the tide goes out, you see you swimming naked, right? And so now we're seeing people swimming naked, right? So now they're right-sizing their companies just like their valuations are right-sizing too. But what the good news is for all the other companies out there who aren't tech companies, who have been kind of left behind as some companies go with the technology and other companies are kind of high touch in the professional services arena. It's now your opportunity, if you run a company like this, for you to catch up. You can go out and actually get great technology talent that you could have never afforded because they were making $250,000, $350,000 a year working in Silicon Valley, and now they just need to stay here.
Yeah.
And they're going to take, you know, whatever they can so their kids don't have to, you know, get kicked out of school, go back to another country. You know, their lives are uprooted.
Yeah.
Right. So now you can go out and you can actually afford great technology talent out there, and this is actually an opportunity for you to catch up. So when I talk to business owners out there, you know, CEOs, strategic leaders, entrepreneurs, like, this is your chance. Don't play defense. Don't play scared right now. Go play offense right now, because we're gonna wake up in 6 months and this looming recession is actually going on now, but will be over. And after the stock market and everything, the technology companies have right-sized their valuations and their staff, everything's gonna kind of feel kind of normal, and we're gonna be back to gangbusters because there's still 2 jobs open for every 1 person that's unemployed. Now,
I was about to say, we're still very, very, and everyone I talk to, all my colleagues in other businesses and what have you, and some of our competitors, they're absolutely, you know, run ragged. They're very, very busy. So
yes,
it's you know, you're seeing all of these reductions in force, but on the same note, the overall job market is obviously very, you know,
yes, manufacturing, agriculture, food, you know, all these other sectors, healthcare, you know, they're all doing really well. So I encourage everybody out there to be optimistic right now. So anyway, that's just my soapbox right there. People are checking here. I want to know what your thoughts are. If you've got questions for me, for Rob, get in here. Aaron Venable says, great insights, Ben. Thank you. Somebody's buying it.
There you go.
Somebody's drinking the Kool-Aid out there. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate your
That's your
support.
Venmo payment.
Yes, Venmo payment. That's the sound of Venmo. Just that's great. Charles Beatty. Hi, Ben and Rob. Yes, Charles was on yesterday. Charles Beatty Jr. Yeah, today. Phil Leonard actually has a question. Oh, here you go. Phil says, has there been any updates and movement on getting visas approved and processed? Are we seeing any movement here? Is this getting better?
Yeah, so it depends on which country we're talking about.
Let's say
I'll say in general. So what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of moves to clear out backlogs and get people where they need to be. We're seeing a lot of improvement in processes, so streamlining systems and processes to make sure that people can facilitate the smoother movement of people. So I think you will, and we are. But as I said, it is cyclical. So
is the U.S. behind other countries in our processes and just the way
it depends on how you look at it, right? So U.S. immigration is. I don't want to be incredibly critical and end up
being incredibly critical. That's what we do here.
But it can be archaic in some ways when you look at it compared. So, for example, in Australia, when I was still practicing, we talk going back 15 years, we had completely automated online system application processes
compared to
no physical visa labels. That's going back 2 decades now. So. In some ways, I guess the system here can be viewed as being a little bit out of date or archaic in that sense.
Sounds like we're 2 decades behind Australia.
But yeah, no, and it's just, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but it's just different. And that is the sort of kicker with global immigration, right? Not every person you deal with all these different systems and processes and ways of doing things, and you got to roll with the punches with each one. So
it feels like because the U.S. immigration system. My words, not yours.
I'm not a U.S. attorney, so I'm
fine. Is behind the times, is manual, is paper, is all those things. It's so funny. I'll go through LinkedIn, I'll be scrolling, and I saw one lady post, "Hey, just submitted this application." She had a ruler next to it. I think it was probably about yay big, thickness of paper, right? Hey, send it off another, And it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have the same. I remember when I first started that first summer that I had a summer cadetship with PwC, they got rid of the independent executive 457 visa in Australia, and those applications used to be like that, so tall you couldn't jump over them. And we were just sending down, dolly trolleys full of them, because once you lodged them, once you had one, you could renew it, but you couldn't apply for a new one. So you couldn't get it for the first time. So. I remember the days of those big paper lodged applications, and also having to apply at post. You used to have to apply for a 457. When I very first started, you used to have to apply for a 457 at the embassy. So we'd be coordinating it from Australia, but posting out things to Pretoria or whatever it would be. So the Australian system changed a lot over the years, but it's been automated for a long time.
So because the U.S. system isn't nearly as automated, hit that like button, by the way. Get your questions and comments in here. Because the U.S. system isn't as automated, does that put the onus of automation and workarounds and technological solutions onto the provider to now try to automate someone else's manual process? I mean,
to a degree, and it also just makes really good business sense. You know what I mean? You don't want to be manually re-keying, so it does put a necessity to, and that's why you see a number of case management systems and sort of pop up that do that for you. But It does make it important for you internally to automate it so that your people aren't, doing more. They're as efficient as they can be. But then also for the applicant as well, the client, making sure that they're not that it's as smooth as possible for them. But technology in general is a big focus, at least for us.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's across mobility as far as I'm aware, but.
Well, yeah, it is across mobility, and every service line that we speak to, whether it's moving or corporate housing or tax, they're all talking about technological solutions to, at the very least, eliminate double data entry and automate a lot of standardized processes. And then sometimes get to kind of a single pane of glass approach where systems, my firm, we're talking to systems, your firm, we're talking to maybe a government system, whatever. We're all kind of letting the machines do the, machine things, and the humans do the human things. And I want to know, in your opinion, is technology, is it, I know we do overrated, underrated here, but is it overrated or underrated in the immigration space? Is it something that clients are putting in? And I guess it's really a client side and a service provider side. Is it from a client perspective? Is it something that clients are looking at and maybe 100%. Looking for tech to do too much?
No, I don't think so. I think it's it's been underrated a lot in the past because I think it ties also into the compliance angle. And I remember saying to someone last year, I think it was, if I'm happy about one thing at the moment, it's, we would go to all of these ERCs and all the rest of it, all these conferences where people would talk about business traveler compliance and Spanish compliance, where people are, knowing where people are in the world, making sure they got the right permission to work, that sort of thing.
Right.
And we'd all talk about it at these conferences, and everyone go, and that would often just be the end of it.
Right.
There wasn't really a following through. We would be asked in RFPs all the time about tracking software and compliance, software and making sure people have the right visa to travel, could check why they're traveling and make sure they get the right permission to work if needed, that sort of thing. But I do note I've noticed in the last couple of years that that's now really getting followed through on. So there's a lot more focus on that. So I think there's a rise in technology, but it's linked to the increase in the focus on compliance, which, as a career immigration person, I praise praise the Lord for, because it is something that I think compliance was neglected a lot in the past.
Well, and it seems like compliance is probably the best place to start, because a lot of times technology is like a want to have, whereas compliance is a have to have.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, okay, so if we're going to start anywhere, it's going to be compliance, because also if we want to get this funded, we go to legal and say, hey, if we don't get this funded, we're going to go to jail. We're going to get hit with a fine. We're going to fill in the blank scary thing that could happen. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, okay, versus going and saying, gosh golly, our people are working awful hard doing double data entry. Like, yeah, right. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also, there was a kickoff with traveler compliance sort of during COVID, when I think it was Greece was getting sort of whacked financially, so they started enforcing some of the posted worker side of things, so making sure people had the right permission to work or had registered correctly, and started issuing some big fines. And then that was sort of a kickoff to people saying, well, we want to make sure that we're covered here. And I think it's sort of rolled from there a fair bit as well. But also, this move of people, this digital nomad shift, with people just working from wherever, and then all of a sudden people saying, well, I need to know where they are, making sure they're compliant, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this has been so riveting. Let's talk about immigration. But let's have a little fun. You want to have a little fun? We'll see. Either way, it's happening, so enjoy it. I actually prepared a really special top 5 for you, Rob. You're a friend, and we've had some fun together, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. Not just because what you say is interesting, but how you say it is unique. He's like, he really doesn't like where this is going.
Well, I just hope it's.
We got a top 5 here. I'm going to give you a top 5 list of things Aussies say, and you're going to tell me what they mean.
If I can.
Now, I've been hearing you say this stuff. Not all this stuff is you, but I've been hearing you used to say some stuff. Frankly, I didn't have the courage to tell you the time. I don't know what you're talking about, Rob. But now I'm going to ask you to define some of these things, okay?
Yeah.
Right.
No worries.
No worries. I'm looking at his face. It's all worries. All right. Number 5. Mate.
Everyone's a mate.
This is crazy to me, because you'll tell me a story about guys you know all your life. They're mates.
Yeah.
Tell me a story about feeling like punching somebody in the face. He's also a mate.
Well, and that's the trick. It's where you put mate in the sentence.
That's how they explain.
So if I say if mate's at the beginning of the sentence, you're in trouble.
Ooh.
If it's at the end of the sentence.
Use it in a sentence. Give me 2 sentences where mate is used wildly differently.
Mate, what did you think you're doing?
Okay, I feel intimidated. Yes, I feel that. Okay.
No worries, mate.
No worries, mate. Is like, we're good.
Yeah. So it's generally, if it's at the beginning of the sentence, you're in more trouble.
Is it ever in the middle of the sentence? Is that like a medium, mate?
Not really.
No. Okay. Sorry. I'm just learning here. I'm learning how to use English in different countries. Well, that's funny. That's funny. All right. Number 4. You're dreaming.
If you haven't gone out, shout out to anyone that's watched The Castle. That's an Aussie movie with Eric Bana, where they really coined that phrase. Tell them they're dreaming.
Okay.
So
what does that mean?
Your head in the clouds. You're absolutely out of your mind.
You're out of your mind. It's not gonna happen.
No, you're dreaming.
So if I'm like, hey Rob, I want you to come on Love and Relo.
If I told you you're dreaming, I wasn't.
We're a tutu. You're like, you're dreaming.
You're dreaming.
You're dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming. Do you ever use this in like a business sense? Give me a sentence. I'm gonna ask
Well, you know, if the client thinks they're going to get it by that time, they're bloody dreaming.
Yeah, this is one that I feel like we understand.
Yeah.
This one's fairly easy. This one's it's lower in the library. Hit that like button. Let me know if there's something else that you've seen Aussies say that you want to find here. Maybe we can.
Please keep it family friendly.
Yeah, let's keep it family friendly because people's families just watch this. It's actually not true. No, go for it, guys. Really go for it. Number 3, rock up.
Rock up.
Rock up. So this one I hear used a lot. And actually they use this in England too.
Yeah.
So what's rock up mean?
Pull up. You know, if you rock up and do a good job, you came in and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Like show up.
Yeah.
Like you were talking to me.
All of these were very common.
No,
just
rock up. We never say rock up.
Really?
Never say rock up.
You know, the thing I've noticed since living in the States is, first of all, I have to soften my accent a ton.
Okay.
When my fiance hears me and my mates talk together, she's like, I didn't understand it.
It's indecipherable.
Yeah, so it gets a lot more ochre.
Ochre. What is ochre?
That's just Aussie rough twangy accent. But, yeah. But also, one of the things I noticed, I don't know if it's a Texas thing, American thing, what have you, but if I use a word that is not American vernacular, you see the Apple pinwheel start spinning and they get lost on that one word. So if I say boot instead of trunk, or, you know, put in the bin instead of the trash can, like, they get caught on that one word. So I've had to get really good at making sure I don't use those words.
Yes, we do. The boot had me for a long time.
Yeah.
Rock up was one that took me a minute to get. Yeah.
I really thought that was more common.
Well, I think you said, I rocked up in a suit and a tie, and they told me you're dreaming.
Yeah. I think that was the story. When I moved to Perth and to open our office there, I'd been going backwards and forwards for work for a long time. And that same client I was talking about before, he'd started a new mining company, and I rocked up in. There you go, rocked up.
Yeah,
I can do it without even realizing.
And when you say it, it sounds so beautiful.
But I rocked up in a suit with a jacket and a tie, and he told me to go back to my hotel room, take them off, because no one would trust me if I rocked up to Perth in a suit jacket and tie, because that's an over East thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, I got the same talk when I went to BAM in California, in San Francisco. SF, not San Fran. And Josh Hyatt told me, so, you know, don't come wearing a VP suit here. I'm like, why? What's going on? Is it a dress code or something? Is it like what is it? I said, no, nobody trusts you. Nobody does that. And then he rocked up in a shirt, jeans, and flip flops. And now the guy's the president of BAM.
And I think it's also places that are sunny like that. But also places like the West Coast. Perth is the same on the west coast of Australia. They're 2-3 hours behind the East Coast. They're a little bit more laid back. So by 3 o'clock, because by 3 o'clock they've the rest of their business and their clients are offline on the East Coast. So
love it.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of work at the pub with client meetings at the pub. In
More work should be done at the pub, I think. We take ourselves too seriously sometimes. Let's go to the pub. If you've got an Aussie saying you want defined, or if you've got a favorite saying, throw it in the comments.
It makes me very nervous.
Me too. We're just gonna say yes.
There you go. Say yes.
Scott Chapman, love Scott. Scott's gonna be on the show soon here. He says define. He's got 2.
Okay.
Oh man, Scott. Spit the dummy.
Yep.
What's that mean?
I'll use other Aussie idiots, chucking a wobbly, chucking a banana. So it's basically when you lose your temper.
Okay. Yeah. So when you lose you spit the dummy when you.
Yeah. So you speak your mind. Give them a piece of your mind. Yeah.
All right. And what about budgie smuggler?
Speedos. That's probably right on the borderline of being
borderline. Scott's wearing a budgie.
That's what we
smuggler.
call Speedo babies.
Nice. He says it's family appropriate. His kids are older though.
We also call it a banana hammock and budgie smugglers. Yeah.
Aaron's saying, wait, does rock up mean dress up, or I showed up wearing a suit and tie?
No. Rock up means just you arrived.
Plain old showed up. You never say the word showed up.
Oh,
I showed up.
We use other people's vernacular.
Suit and tie. Or is it a special kind of showing up? So confused.
No, just rock up. You can rock up in bathers, rock up in shorts and flip flops.
Bathers is a bathing suit?
Yeah.
You could rock up in a budgie smuggler?
Yeah, right. In your 40s? I'm a body person, not a budgie smuggler person.
Yeah, I think we all are, thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
All right, number 2. Vegemite.
I think is it the same as Marmite that you get in the UK? Do you get Marmite here?
Marmite?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
It's just a really salty spread that you put on it. And this is the problem.
Is it a real thing? People really eat it?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. But the thing is, when people introduce Americans to it, they spread it on like Nutella. Oh. It's horrible. You've got to put lots of butter in a thin spread of Vegemite. That's the trick. If anyone tries it, that's the trick.
Okay, so really everything in moderation. I mean,
Yeah,
just not.
It's pretty bloody salty.
Yeah, it's like just pouring kosher salt on
there
a
you
cracker. So is it on bread or a cracker?
Either.
Okay. So
you put butter. You would put butter to offset the saltiness.
So like a salted butter, like I mean that's not
the big topics today, aren't we? The big
issues. Have you never seen this show? You think we talk about serious stuff? We wear jackets and talk about nothing. No, this is great. Okay, so Vegemite. So maybe I'll get I haven't had Vegemite in 20 years.
I'll bring you some back next time I go.
All right. Marmite, same thing. Okay, we don't know. Somebody put in the comments here, is Marmite and Vegemite the same thing?
Yeah, very similar. I think there's a tweak to Vegemite. But
And what's in Vegemite?
I don't know.
Do we care? Do we want to know?
It's a yeast spread. Like that's the thing. It's a lot of.
Somebody give me the ingredients to Vegemite and let me know if Vegemite and Marmite are the same thing. I'm giving out extra credit today. Somebody please help me out here. Put that in the comments for us here. Number one. Now this is my favorite one that I heard. Piss in your pocket.
You really outed me with that one.
Well, I mean, no, come on, we're adults here. So
it could be two things. It can be sort of over hovering, hovering over someone and
a little close.
Yeah.
It illustrates the closeness.
Yeah, like over managing and sort of that sort of thing.
So
but also,
it
can be blowing smoke.
Okay.
Upping someone and
Okay.
Yeah, hyping somebody up a little bit.
All right.
You can use it both ways.
Okay. I know this one's going in rotation. I like this one a lot.
Please don't credit me with
I'm actually going to teach my 7-year-old son this when he's playing defense and he's playing football or soccer, as we say. I'm like, before I was like, I want you to get in his jersey, get in his pocket.
Yeah.
We're gonna go stuff.
Where is number?
Where is number?
That's how our coach used to tell us.
Very nice, very nice.
Where is bloody number?
That was a lot of fun, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Thank you for being a good sport there and making me smarter. We're gonna go right in. We're gonna go right. It's a low bar. We're gonna go right into a second segment that we like to call overrated, underrated.
Okay.
We're just going back to back. You ready for this? All right.
Figure it out.
Overrated, underrated. Do you know how to play this game?
Refresh me.
All right. Very simple. Very well. I gave you a yes/no question before you said maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're gonna go through the rules again on this. Okay. So you get two options. You can say something is, I'm gonna give you a topic, and you are gonna tell me if it's overrated or underrated.
Okay.
And then here's the twist. I'm gonna tell you if you're right.
Okay. Whether my opinion's right. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, it's a flawed premise, but it's mine. All right, overrated, underrated. First topic is immigration compliance. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated, but I think it's on its way up.
It's on its way over the fence to overrated?
No, I think it's been underrated, but I think it's now starting to be valued more appropriately.
Properly rated?
There you go.
Again, properly rated is
Getting
not an
what it
option,
deserves.
even though it's my favorite response. So it's underrated.
Yes.
Why is it underrated?
Because it wasn't getting as much love as it deserved over the years, and we're starting to see that change. But you can't. I mean, you've got to be. The impacts.
It should be table stakes.
Yeah, and also it's not just the company that suffers in that side of things. If you don't have compliance and someone ends up being removed or having their visa cancelled or what have you, that can affect their ability to go back to that country if they've got friends or family from there or roots there. That's a big deal. So it's one thing about the potential business impacts and costs of the business and what have you, but there's a human element to it to compliance as well.
That's a really good point, right? Sometimes we just think whatever we do in business is just business. It's business. But when you're talking about immigration, you're talking about people's lives.
I mean, if you got a 10-year exclusion period, that's a pretty meaningful,
Jeez.
meaningful problem. And if you got something refused for something silly, or you had a visa cancelled or been removed, you have to declare that on almost every visa application to anywhere in the world.
If that happens to an individual and it's because of the negligence of their employer or the company, are they able to, like, do people sue companies over that kind of stuff?
I haven't personally seen a company get sued for that sort of
Right.
stuff, but yeah, I can imagine you would. You know, if you
I'd be-
entrusted your
I'd be pissed.
employer and their attorneys or their law firm, their migration firm to do the right thing by you, and they didn't, I mean, that through no fault of yours. That's why we have professional indemnity
You know what?
insurance.
I'm not a compliance person, but you've made an excellent case.
Yeah.
You are correct. You are one for one.
Oh, there you go.
You're one for he's batting 1,000 here. Let's see if he can keep it up. Number 2, conferences, overrated or underrated?
I think they're both.
Both is not an option, Rob.
You know, I think coming out of COVID, I was so excited to get back onto the conference circuit.
Yes,
I wasn't last year because I was having a bit of a break, but even the year before, when countries hadn't completely opened back up, and you know, people were still a bit apprehensive about getting out and pressing the flesh and what have you. I think even then I was pretty stoked to get along to them and get to see people again.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing about mobility is how tight knit of a community it is. And I got to say, during COVID, I really missed getting out and seeing people like yourself and everybody else. So it's underrated in that sense.
Yeah,
but
it's good to see. Now, the next one is in-person visits.
Yeah, underrated. One of the things that this is what you and I were talking about this the other day. One of the things that I think was a real negative about what we do in sort of the account management and business development side of things is we felt that we could win accounts or manage accounts without getting out there and seeing people, because during COVID you had to.
Right.
And one of the things I'm really trying to be conscious of is making sure that I get back out to see people.
Yeah.
You know, hit the tiles, get out and see your clients. Get out if you've got a prospect that you're looking to land and they're somewhere close by, go out and see them. You know, I think it's become quite underrated in the world of the COVID world. You know.
Oh, tremendously so, and just so much magic happens in person. You know, you sit down with somebody like this, or go out and you have a drink with somebody, or you go to dinner with somebody, or whatever. Those meaningful connections. I mean, there's something about breaking bread with somebody. There's some trust that's built the more time you have with somebody. And I think trust is the foundation of business. I know that we have contracts and things in place, and we rely on those as kind of a proxy for trust. But at the end of the day, you know, it all comes down to, do I trust this person? Because I could have a contract with them, but if I don't trust them, and it can still go sideways. We end up in court. Things can go massively wrong. They cannot fulfill their end of the obligation. I mean, that's obviously worst case scenario. That is why trust, in my opinion, is so important. And there's really no other way to build that kind of trust than.
Yeah. And the trust is one, first of all, the client notices it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, people notice if you haven't been out. I remember winning a client where their previous provider had had their work for 10+ years and they'd never met in person.
Wow.
Not for an annual review. And this was a Fortune 500 business.
Wow.
But, you know, also it ties back to what we were talking about before with loving what you do.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to clients all day, every day. And if you're my mates, if we become mates and you know, we're good friends and all the rest of it, it makes me love my job that much more.
Yeah.
So I think getting out and making your clients and the people you interact with every day more than just a first name and surname on an email, you know, on a computer screen, is really a critical part of enjoying what you do and loving what you do. So
absolutely agreed.
And I mean, you heard me say before, we talk about someone as a mate in Australia. Well, that was my client first and foremost. First, that was my client, but now I'd feel horrible saying that he was a client. You know,
right?
My mate,
he's your friend. Yeah, yeah. I feel that way about my clients too. I mean, they're friends kind of first. Last one. Common sense.
Underrated, and often. There's a lack of it, isn't there, as well?
Well, maybe it's not common.
No, common sense isn't common. I say that often.
Yeah. I tend to. I mean, listen, it's kind of one of those, again, kind of like we say table stakes, like compliance, right? It's like, yeah, you have to have kind of some basic sense. Now, the flip side of that is, I think it's a little overrated. Yeah. I'll tell you why. Because I think common sense, when we say, you know, common sense, right? I mean, we're talking about like being able to like do things and not screw it up, because it's like common sense how to do it, in my opinion. But I think mistakes are so underrated.
Oh, 100%.
That's a really, really good point.
You know what I'm saying? That like common sense is also kind of like a proxy for like conventional wisdom. And I think thinking unconventionally
Yeah.
is such an underrated talent and differentiator that, you know, maybe it's good to every once in a while do something kind of boneheaded. And
Yeah. And, you know, that's also one of the mistakes are one of the things that I think are the best argument for people working in the office. I don't work in the office. I work from home. I don't
Right.
have a particular opinion one way or the other on it, to be honest. But making mistakes in an office setting, it's not just you that learns. You know what I mean? Everybody
Yes.
learns. You know,
We all get to point and laugh.
I used to have a saying that was like, the only thing I won't forgive is making a mistake and not putting your hand up. I'll forgive any mistake you make, except not putting your hand up when you've made it.
Because why is that?
Because first of all, it makes it become a big problem. It makes a small problem into a big problem because you sit on it and it festers.
Yeah.
Second of all, I can't help you if I don't know about it.
Yeah.
And also, what's to stop everyone else from making the same bloody mistake?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it also sometimes shows that they haven't learned from it either if they're not owning it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I need to know that you've learned the lesson here too. We all.
I think there's an element of leading by example in that as well. Like I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say, "I've made a mess of this. You know, this is what don't do this. You know, don't make the same mistake I did." I'll be the first, and I think so long as people can see you're prepared to sort of put your hand up and say, "I've made a mistake," it makes it much more.
I agree.
Takes off the taboo element of it. So
I love that. You're absolutely right. I think leaders have to be the first people
yeah,
to kind of show that they're not infallible.
everybody's human.
That we make mistakes,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Rob, this has been a lot of fun. Aaron's checking in here saying love the personal visits and in-person chats. So important. I agree, Aaron. Love that stuff too. This has been a lot of fun, Rob.
I think so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, you've been great. Do you want to leave people maybe with just one final thought today?
Oh, I hadn't thought about one. No, nothing in particular jumps to mind.
Yeah.
But you know, just that thing I was saying before about love what you do.
Yeah.
You know, I used to. I remember. You know, I took over looking after the operations in EMEA at one point, and there were a couple of people who just didn't love what they do, and I said to them, "I'm going to make it so this job is something you love, or I'm going to get you a job somewhere where you do love it." Like,
yeah,
you know, that is. You see so many people just dredge through, just going through the motions, like, and it just kills my soul watching that sort of stuff. Just love
you know
what
they're
do.
not happy, right?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
love
like,
it. Just do something else, you know.
go find something that makes you
Yeah.
happy.
100%.
I love that. This has been another amazing show here with Rob Moorhouse from Erickson Immigration Group. Rob, it's been a real treat having you here with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for coming all the way from Houston down the road of peace. And thank you everybody who's tuned in. If you're going to be in the Dallas area, let us know. We can get you scheduled here for an in studio because in person is really honestly where it's at. So come through, check us out here at Global HQ and be on Love and Relo. Also, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button. Everybody that is tuned in, we wouldn't have a show without you. So thank you all. Take care, everybody.